I am Rodney Scott, pitmaster and owner at Rodney Scott's Whole Hog Barbecue. Today I'm going to show you a quick at-home technique of cooking spare ribs on your home grill.
The barbecue spare rib is a cut that I've enjoyed my entire life, and I have a very intimate relationship with barbecue, spare ribs, and pork. I think I remember having my first spare rib when I was about 8 years old. We were cooking at home in the yard and some ribs were on the table. It was tender, it was juicy, some of them had a bite to them, and it was always my favorite part. The spare ribs are smoked over the pit, direct hot coals, and the texture has just a slight bark on it, but there's still a tenderness. So when you bite into the rib, you get a slight tug, but not so soft that it falls off the bone. The flavor is unique because it's a low smoke. It's a vinegar sauce that's wrapped around it, along with that oaky and hickory type flavor that's all wrapped in.
I mean, since we have 3 different cuts, is there an approach that you're thinking because there's different thickness, different fat content?
Same approach for me all the time. Be careful, pay attention, start slow, because you can always add to it, but you can't really take away all the time. Right now, you're not thinking about this being delayed. You want to eat this. Yeah. So we're going to make sure that we be careful on how we season it and how hot our pit is. I've screwed up some ribs before starting too hot. And you couldn't rip them apart. They were so tough. The spare ribs that we use are pretty much a 10 to 12 bone spare rib. We get all of our spare ribs from local hogs. The first thing that we do is we remove the membrane from the spare rib so that we can let all of our secret rub and spices get into the meat. Just before I put them on the fire, I sprinkle my rub on them. We use a basic rub with some other stuff added to it. We grab our special rub and we sprinkle it all over the spare rib. We turn it over and we sprinkle it on both sides. The special rub is basically some paprika, a little bit of cayenne pepper, a little bit of black pepper, some kosher salt, and several other secret ingredients.
What's in that rub?
We got some paprika, and then we got some paprika, and then we put a little bit more paprika in there.
So paprika.
I personally like to just a little sprinkle over them.
Yeah, that's not overly aggressive. Like, what do you kind of imagine of?
You rub it and you bite into it, it's salty. When you just sprinkle it on there and give it a chance to cook through, it's usually a better flavor. We don't really rub it too much into the meat because the rub is kind of intense, so we don't want it to be over salted. Another thing I don't like to do is pre-rub my ribs too far ahead, because if you start to rub them and you stack them, they start massaging the ingredients all in there. And then you get that saltiness that you don't want.
You want to lightly sprinkle. You don't want to put too much of Rodney's rub on your ribs because it's very potent. You always want to make sure that this extra flap right here is seasoned as well.
This is the way Rodney Scott seasons his ribs, with paprika.
Real exclusive about your wood.
Yes, I like to use majority of oak and every now and again add in a little hickory.
What temperature do you want it at?
With that meat, I would stay around 220.
Perfect.
Go nice and slow because it's not a real thick cut. 250 might cook it a little fast. We take the spare rib and we put it on the pit with the thickest part of the spare rib towards the center of the pit.
Because we're using spares, always want to make sure that the thick side is over the hottest part of your grill. You hear that? It's love right there.
Once we put the sauce on the ribs, how much longer?
Not long, because the sauce starts to break it down and make it nice and tender. And then we just want a little bit of color on the other side and boom, we're good.
Now, as you can see, our ribs are done. And now we want to mop, so we can take a brush and our sauce. Then you want to flip them over.
We take the mop and we mop it with the sauce. We use the mop simply because that's what I grew up doing. That's what I'm accustomed to. And it's a lot easier to use the mop. It covers the whole rib just about in one stroke. I think we need to sauce and flip. Since we don't have a mop and we are in New York City, we're gonna do a makeshift mop. So you really wanna just get the sauce on it, just enough to coat it.
Is there anything else you're looking for?
Just a little color. We want a little bit more of this going on all over. I'm thinking we're gonna make it there probably within the time frame that we're expecting. Every pit is an adjustment for me because I've never used this one. I don't know how hot it would get. But one thing I've noticed, usually the bottom of the rib will get all of the texture and the color first. In this one, the top got all the texture and the color first.
Never thought about that.
Me either. We all just learned something. I listened to you tell me how your smoker operates, and we paid attention to how it was cooking the meat. So we learned that, hey, let's go ahead and flip it over, or else we're gonna be here an extra 2 hours.
Right.
Once the ribs have been mopped, then we flip them over. We flip them over because we want to cook the other side to get that equal char, nice smoky flavor. What we're looking for is we want the bone to start protruding, to stick out just a little bit. To finish the rib, we mop the second side, and then we flip it back over again to make sure that everything is done and everything's tender, and the rib starts to bend when it's done. Once they're at that perfect tenderness, we pull them off because they're ready to serve.
Oh yeah. Well, these are already the best looking ribs that have come out of this smoker.
Woo! It looks great. I mean, it's like the Himalayas. When you look on a map, you see the little bumps. When you got the tiny Himalayas there, nice color, should be nice and tender. Look at there. That's nice and tender right there.
Yeah.
Gotta have your napkins. This gets messy. I'm telling you. All right, here we go. Belly. Wow. The belly really showed up.
I mean, a lot thinner, so you get a lot more spice.
But not too much spice. What do you think?
Exactly.
I feel like whenever I've done ribs, I've been like actually rubbing them in, but like watching you today, just
If we rubbed it in, this would have been more intense. Shall we move on? Loin. I like a little tug in my rib.
Yeah.
And because I like that tug, that loin area is where you're gonna get just that little bite, like you said, the pork chop bite.
Right.
You want to enjoy the rib without biting into it and the whole thing slides off the bone.
yeah.
That's great and everything, but me personally, I prefer a little tug.
I want to earn it. It's like neck and neck for the picnic for me. This is really, really good.
I might actually like this better.
Just a little tug.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like my rib meat falling off the bone. I like to serve my food the way that I enjoy it myself,
Uh-huh.
and that's with that tug.
Because in order for it to fall off the bone, you just have to cook it and cook it, cook it. Do you feel like that's kind of like a rookie move? Like, just cook the hell out of it?
Not necessarily a rookie move, but just something I've never been a real fan of it.